Welcome to this quiet journey through the strange and fascinating world of Fallout. Tonight we will drift through the forgotten corners, obscure trivia, and bits of knowledge scattered across the wasteland. Let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from tonight, and if you enjoy these calm explorations, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. When players first step into the Fallout universe, they are met with ruins, radiation, and the remains of a once mighty civilization. Beneath all the serious tones of survival and tragedy, however, lies a layer of delightful absurdity. From mutated food to eccentric pre-war inventions, Fallout's wasteland is filled with details that serve little purpose other than to amuse or confuse. For example, the mysterious bottle of Nuka-Cola quartz glows faintly in the dark, not because of radiation, but because the developers used a light-emitting texture meant for laser weapons. It serves no special gameplay function, yet fans often collect it as if it were sacred. Another small detail lies in the way pre-war books are distributed across the games. In Fallout 3, they appear on nearly every shelf, often in completely random places, such as inside ovens or next to toilets. Developers once explained this was not intentional storytelling, but a side effect of how item placement was randomized during map generation. Despite that, fans still speculate that these books represent remnants of propaganda left by the old world. A bug became lore. As so often happens in Fallout, the junk items that clutter player inventories often hide small jokes from the developers. The Abraxo Cleaner boxes, for example, always feature slightly different designs in each Fallout title. In Fallout New Vegas, the logo includes the words, "Kills germs you never knew existed," which is ironic considering that no one in the wasteland seems concerned about sanitation. Similarly, the pre-war money found scattered around ruins still holds value only because collectors and traders decided it did. It weighs nothing, takes up space, and can be used as crafting material, but its real worth is entirely sentimental. Many players never notice that the Nuka-Cola bottle caps are technically different across regions. In Fallout 4, the caps have slightly thicker rims than in Fallout 3, and in Fallout 76, the pattern around the edge is reversed. This change has no effect on gameplay and likely happened because of a model redesign, yet some fans have built entire conspiracy theories around it, claiming that certain caps belong to alternate pre-war factories that survived the bombs. Some belong to characters who exist only for a single line of dialogue. In Fallout 3, a child in Little Lamplight can be overheard saying he plans to become president one day. If players visit him again after completing the main quest, he never leaves the cave, never grows up, and never becomes president. His ambition serves no purpose other than to remind players how frozen in time this world can be. In Fallout New Vegas, a random settler at Camp McCarran mentions a hobby of collecting bottle caps shaped like stars. That single throwaway line foreshadows the entire Sunset Sarsaparilla mystery, but in most cases, no one ever follows up with him. One of the most overlooked design choices in Fallout 4 involves the skeletons found across the Commonwealth. Some are posed in ways that tell silent stories, lovers holding hands in bathtubs, soldiers slumped against walls, or scientists collapsed beside terminals. Yet some are simply placed upside down on couches or inside refrigerators, not as part of storytelling, but because the physics engine occasionally spawned them incorrectly. Players assumed these were Easter eggs, when in reality, they were unintentional. A few developers later admitted they kept them because they found them funny. Even the beloved Pip-Boy, the signature device of every Fallout protagonist, hides minor quirks. Its screen brightness changes slightly when facing the sun, a subtle effect that most players never notice. The radiation meter occasionally ticks even when no rads are nearby, meant to simulate old electronics malfunctioning. And in Fallout 4, the Pip-Boy radio sometimes reverts to static for no reason other than to make the world feel less predictable. These small inconsistencies give the device a personality, as if it too were just trying its best to survive. In Fallout 76, players discovered that Brahmin, the iconic two-headed cows, will always face north when idle. This odd behavior comes from a navigation bug inherited from older Bethesda engines. The developers decided not to fix it, explaining that the cows simply like the north. To this day, Brahmin across Appalachia remain loyal to their unseen magnetic instinct. Another similarly strange detail involves mole rats. In Fallout 4, some mole rats spawn underground near campfires and never emerge, endlessly tunneling below the surface until the player leaves the area. These invisible mole rats technically count as enemies, meaning the player is considered in combat even when nothing appears on screen. The Nuka World expansion of Fallout 4 contains one of the most elaborate collections of trivia in the series. Inside the Galactic Zone, a display case shows toy rockets labeled with false science fiction companies. None of them exist anywhere else in the game. The terminal beside them references corporate mergers that make no sense, such as Roboco acquiring a company named Stellar Shoes. This was added purely as developer humor. Similarly, a vent in the same building hums at a frequency that matches the first few notes of the Nuka-Cola jingle, a detail almost impossible to notice unless you linger beside it for several seconds. Fallout's creatures also contribute to its collection of nonsense. The bloatfly, one of the series' oldest enemies, has wings that beat at a speed too fast for its model to realistically support. According to internal notes from Fallout 3's design team, animators intentionally exaggerated the speed so that the creature would appear unnerving. This decision carried over into every later game, meaning the insect technically violates all physics, but remains canon anyway. Likewise, the Deathclaw's roar in Fallout 4 is actually a modified recording of a lion mixed with an alligator and slowed by 80%. It is terrifying, yet the creature can be distracted by placing a teddy bear on the ground nearby a detail that players discovered by accident. Several random items in Fallout have descriptions that were written as jokes between developers. The Fancy Lad snack cakes in Fallout New Vegas list a calorie count of 0, despite being a preserved pastry from centuries ago. The Sugar Bomb cereal boxes read "part of a balanced apocalypse," and the Salisbury steak, a staple food in every Fallout game, has different ingredient lists depending on the title. In Fallout 3, it claims to contain beef. In Fallout 4, it lists meat product, and in Fallout 76, the label simply says edible material. The sound design team behind Fallout 4 hid dozens of small auditory jokes. For instance, the beeping of a mine just before detonation actually spells the word boom in Morse code. Few players ever realize this, yet it has been confirmed by sound engineers in interviews. Similarly, the vault door opening sequence plays a low-frequency hum that corresponds to the number of the vault itself. For Vault 111, the pitch sequence contains one low note followed by 3 higher tones, subtly matching the digits 1, 1, 1. It is completely unnoticeable during normal gameplay, but reveals how much care went into even the smallest sound. Not all Fallout trivia is amusing, some of it is simply strange. In Fallout New Vegas, the model for the pool table balls is so low in resolution that every ball technically looks identical up close, despite appearing numbered from a distance. In Fallout 4, every instance of a broom is labeled internally as a cleaning sword, likely because of how item tagging worked early in development. And in Fallout 76, the mini nukes found at artillery sites are textured with serial numbers that do not correspond to any known manufacturer, suggesting that at least some of them may be counterfeit even within the lore. There are also pieces of trivia that exist entirely because of laziness or necessity. Many of the terminals scattered across the series share identical text files copied from older games. This recycling led to odd situations where computers in completely different regions display messages about places that no longer exist. For example, a terminal in Fallout 4 references the Boneyard from Fallout 1, even though the Commonwealth is thousands of miles away. Instead of removing the file, developers left it as is, creating accidental connections between games that fans later treated as hidden lore. Perhaps one of the most delightfully useless facts is that nearly every Fallout game includes at least one perfectly intact toilet. In a world where buildings crumble, radiation burns, and vegetation dies, these porcelain relics endure untouched. Some fans joke that toilets are the true survivors of the apocalypse. One developer even commented that they never break because the toilet model uses one of the most stable physics colliders in the game engine. It was easier to destroy a skyscraper than a toilet. Every Fallout game is filled with this blend of intentional humor, oversight, and accidental storytelling. Each detail, whether it is a misaligned skeleton, a mislabeled can of beans, or a cow facing north, contributes to what makes Fallout's world feel alive. It reminds us that even in a universe defined by tragedy, there is room for absurdity, and maybe that is the point, that things have value simply because they make us smile. The Fallout universe is overflowing with odd choices and invisible details that serve no purpose beyond making the world stranger and somehow more real. One such curiosity lies in the way Nuka-Cola bottles are placed throughout the games. In Fallout 3, bottles almost always point toward the nearest exit of a building, a coincidence caused by the model's default rotation when loaded by the game engine. Players later imagined that survivors had intentionally left them as trail markers. What began as a quirk of code became an unspoken superstition across the community. The design of vault doors hides another layer of trivia. Every vault door features a different pattern of bolts and supports, yet only a few actually move when opening. The rest are painted textures meant to give the illusion of motion. In Fallout 4, developers forgot to link the proper animation to one vault's door, meaning it silently slides open without gears turning. Fans who noticed thought it symbolized the vault's isolation from the old world, but in truth, it was simply an oversight. Even the smallest mistake in Fallout has a way of turning into myth. The Vault-Tec terminals that fill each bunker have text files that reference entirely fictional departments, such as the Division of Non-Essential Morale or the Office of Recreational Hypocrisy. These names never appear again, nor do they connect to any quest, but they reveal the dark humor buried in Fallout's tone. For all its misery, the world remains capable of laughter, a cynical laughter that survived nuclear fire. When the player walks near a skeleton holding a bottle of Nuka-Cola, it sometimes clinks faintly, an ambient sound attached not to the bottle but to the skeleton's arm joint. The developers used a single physics object for both, which caused the audio to trigger whenever the bones moved slightly. This unintended feature gave the eerie impression that ghosts still drank soda in the ruins of civilization. Some useless details border on poetic. In Fallout 4, the pre-war newspapers scattered across Boston each display a different headline, but only the first few are readable. The rest are printed in repeating filler text that says nothing more than lorem ipsum over and over again. These papers lie in every street and home, a reminder that even the old world's words have turned into meaningless noise. It is a small touch that most players overlook, yet it quietly reinforces the sense of loss that defines Fallout. The Protectron robots across the games have more unused voice lines than any other non-human character. Hidden in the files of Fallout New Vegas are recordings of a Protectron who believes he is a lounge singer. The lines include phrases like initiating smooth jazz protocol, yet this version of the robot never appears in the game. The files were left in the code, waiting to be found by data miners years later. The fact that no one ever hears them during normal play makes them perfectly useless and somehow even more charming. A similar mystery surrounds the radios found in Fallout 3. Some players once claimed that if you listened to Galaxy News Radio during a thunderstorm, the static patterns formed Morse code messages predicting future events. Fans decoded dozens of phrases that appeared to forecast quests or character deaths. Developers later confirmed that the Morse code contained no hidden meaning at all. It was simply random noise generated by overlapping sound layers. Still, the rumor persists because in Fallout, myths are often more satisfying than truth. In Fallout 4's creation kit, every instance of Dogmeat's model is labeled Dogmeat version 7, suggesting that the faithful companion has gone through at least 6 previous redesigns that never appeared. The number has no in-game significance, but it has led fans to imagine a line of unseen ancestors, generations of digital dogs, that helped shape the one that finally made it into the Commonwealth. One of the smallest items in Fallout history is the pencil. In every game since Fallout 3, pencils can be picked up, dropped, and traded, yet they have no direct use except for a tiny amount of scrap wood and lead. Their value is almost zero, but their abundance is enormous. Players often joke that the apocalypse must have been sponsored by a stationery company. Some even fill entire storage rooms with nothing but pencils as a form of protest against inventory clutter. The sound of the laser pistol in Fallout 4 is actually 3 separate noises layered together: a camera flash capacitor, a plucked guitar string, and the flick of a soda can tab. Sound engineers have stated that this mixture was purely experimental and had no reason beyond creating something memorable. The result is one of the most recognizable sounds in the series, yet entirely disconnected from reality. It serves as another reminder that Fallout's technology is built on creativity rather than accuracy. The mannequins that populate abandoned buildings throughout Fallout often stand in strange poses. Many players assume they hint at secret cults or hidden rituals, but the truth is much simpler. Developers place them by hand without any particular order, and sometimes physics glitches cause them to rotate mid-animation. One particularly famous mannequin in Fallout 4 appears to be pointing toward a locked safe. Thousands of players interpreted this as a clue, but when the safe was opened, it contained only a single pre-war dollar. The mannequin, as it turns out, was pointing at nothing at all. In Fallout 76, there exists a rare chance for a weather glitch called the Silent Storm. During it, rain falls normally, but produces no sound, lightning flashes without thunder, and background ambience vanishes completely. The world becomes eerily still, creating a brief, dreamlike calm across the wasteland. Though it is an accident of the audio engine, many players consider it one of the most peaceful experiences in the game. A bug, yet somehow more beautiful than the features built on purpose. The series' obsession with food continues to generate oddities. The Blamco mac and cheese boxes list an expiration date of the year 2099, suggesting that even 2 centuries after the war, they are still technically good. The snack cakes stacked in vending machines regenerate over time in Fallout 4, respawning as if an invisible vendor restocks them. And the cram cans have slightly different weight values depending on whether they were placed before or after a patch, leading collectors to separate them into heavy and light generations. No one needs to care about such distinctions, but fans track them anyway. The pre-war companies that populate Fallout lore often reference real-world trends twisted through dark humor. Sunset Sarsaparilla, for instance, was designed as the old-fashioned rival to Nuka-Cola, but the caps on its bottles feature tiny manufacturing imperfections. Early concept art showed that every 100th cap would be printed upside down, a joke meant to frustrate collectors searching for the rare star-marked versions. The final game never implemented this, yet the art book still includes the note. Even unrealized ideas become trivia in Fallout's layered world. One of the oddest pieces of background design lies in the use of clocks. Nearly every clock in Fallout 4 stops at the exact time of the Great War 947 in the morning. However, a handful of clocks found in Diamond City continue to tick. This is not a sign of functioning electricity, but a reused asset from a pre-war interior cell. The developers simply forgot to disable its animation. That small oversight allows players to believe that somewhere time never stopped ticking. In Fallout New Vegas, the dinosaurs of Novac are hollow models. If players use console commands to step inside their chests, they will find nothing but empty space and floating texture fragments. Inside one of them, however, sits an invisible cube labeled Marker for Fun. It was most likely placed by a developer as a test point. That single unseen object has become a source of speculation for more than a decade, proving once again that things gain meaning only because people decide they do. Fallout's musical choices add more trivia to the list. The Inkspot's Maybe plays during Fallout's ending slideshows, but few realize the track begins 2 seconds later than its original recording. This edit was made to sync better with the narrator's voice. Similarly, in Fallout 4, the radio station Diamond City Radio plays a version of Uranium Fever that fades out 10 seconds earlier than the real song. These edits serve no deeper purpose, but remind attentive listeners that even nostalgia is slightly altered in the wasteland. The currency of the wasteland, bottle caps, technically lacks any economic logic. Each cap weighs a measurable amount, yet no one ever accounts for this weight when trading. In Fallout 4, if a player drops hundreds of caps on the ground, they form a small pile that never disperses. The engine treats them as a single item. This tiny inconsistency is never addressed, yet it means that the wasteland's entire economy rests on a glitch. Every Fallout game also hides names of real people in its background textures. The posters in Fallout 3's Rivet City contain signatures of the art team blended into the paint. The warning signs in Fallout 4's Corvega factory list phone numbers that, when rearranged, match the release date of Fallout 3. None of these details affect gameplay, but they reveal the human fingerprints beneath the fiction. The wasteland might be ruined, but it was crafted with affection. Some facts simply highlight how absurd Fallout's rules can be. In every game, drinking from a toilet restores a small amount of health despite adding radiation. This quirk was originally meant as a joke during testing but was never removed. Similarly, wearing sunglasses in Fallout 4 reduces charisma penalties during conversation, even indoors, because the system does not check for lighting conditions. The player can stand in total darkness, wearing glasses for non-existent sun, and still seem more confident. Across decades of releases, Fallout has grown heavier, with details that no one asked for, but everyone secretly enjoys. These fragments, pencils, mannequins, ticking clocks, and cows facing north weave together a portrait of absurd survival. They remind us that even in the ashes of civilization, humanity continues to leave fingerprints on everything, from broken terminals to floating cubes labeled marker for fun. The useless becomes sacred simply because it exists, and in Fallout, existence itself is a kind of victory. Among the more overlooked curiosities of the Fallout universe are the items that seem to exist purely for decoration, yet follow their own hidden logic. One example is the teddy bear. Across Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76, teddy bears appear in hundreds of different scenes in beds, lockers, strollers, and toilets, often posed in strange ways. Some sit at desks holding pencils, others rest beside skeletons as if comforting them. None of these placements have any gameplay purpose. Developers have stated they were positioned randomly by level artists, yet players interpret them as acts of kindness from a world that otherwise forgot how to care. Another small secret lies in the Vault-Tec posters found throughout every vault. Though most carry warnings or cheerful slogans, a few contain messages written in reverse along the borders. These hidden phrases read things like, "Obey Vault-Tec," or "They are watching." The reverse text was never meant to be seen in-game, as the poster's edges were covered by walls or props. Only when players used console commands to move the camera did they find them. What began as a graphic design joke became another piece of urban legend within the series. Even the lighting of the Pip-Boy in Fallout 4 hides a minor technical oddity. When the player activates the flashlight, nearby shadows briefly flicker before stabilizing. This happens because the game treats the Pip-Boy's glow as an external light source, unlike a normal flashlight. The flicker has no real meaning, but gives the effect of an unreliable device, unintentionally matching the world's broken technology. Fallout 76 includes one of the strangest sound-related bugs in the franchise. During a rare weather transition, if players stand near a windmill, the blades may emit faint music. The sound is a leftover piece of ambient code from Fallout 4's Diamond City Marketplace. Somehow, the game occasionally assigns a melody to objects the tune lasts only a few seconds and stops if the player moves away. No one intended for it to happen, yet it turns a simple structure into a wind-powered jukebox. Many of Fallout's animals exhibit behaviors that appear meaningful but are entirely random. The Radstag, a mutated deer found across Appalachia and the Commonwealth, sometimes performs a short jump in place before fleeing. Developers have explained that this is not a sign of fear, but a pathfinding glitch that causes the creature to reset its direction. Still, some fans view the movement as a moment of realism, the last nervous twitch of a species adapting to a world it never chose. Inside Fallout 4's Institute, rows of clean glass containers display brain models connected to wires. These brains serve no quest purpose and can't be interacted with. They exist solely to make the area look scientific, Yet careful inspection reveals that a few of them have small paper labels with names. One says Test 1, another Control 3, and one reads M. Gray. That name does not correspond to any known character, but fans theorize it references a real developer. These meaningless details give the illusion of life behind the sterile laboratory walls. In Fallout New Vegas, the dinosaur-shaped gift shop in Novak sells only toy rockets and empty bottles. The vendor there has a hidden dialogue line that says he has been trying to order real souvenirs for years. The line can't be accessed without console commands. It is part of a larger set of cut lines where he argues with an unseen manager over shipment delays. The entire conversation was removed before release, leaving behind only the hollowed-out dinosaur full of useless trinkets. The pre-war architecture of Fallout cities hides countless small design quirks. Nearly every bathroom has at least one broken mirror, but not a single mirror reflects. The reflection technology was never implemented, so every mirror surface is painted gray. Yet in Fallout 4, a handful of mirrors emit faint metallic light, an effect caused by accidentally overlapping metal shaders. When players discovered this, they began calling them ghost mirrors, believing they showed glimpses of another timeline. Even the smallest creatures in Fallout hold trivia worth mentioning. The radroach, for instance, has its own animation for scratching its back leg. It lasts less than 1 second and can be triggered only when the creature stands still for too long. The gesture was added by an animator during a test session and never removed. It makes the insects feel strangely alive, though the motion serves no gameplay purpose. Another random animal fact involves the stingwing. Its attack sound in Fallout 4 is actually a slowed recording of a bird chirp from an unrelated sound library. The result is an eerie screech that feels otherworldly, but is, in truth, just a distorted robin. Some items are notable purely for how inconsistent they are across games. The mentats, for example, change flavor with every release. In Fallout 3, they are described as cherry. In New Vegas, they are mint. In Fallout 4, they are orange. And in 76, a variant exists called berry mentats that glows bright pink. The effect is always the same, but the lore behind the flavors has become a running joke among fans who argue over which taste is canon. The pre-war advertisements that decorate buildings also tell silent jokes. Many of them display slogans that contradict the events of the war. A poster for Dandy Boy apples promises freshness that lasts a lifetime, while a billboard for the Poseidon Energy Company claims power that never fades. The irony of these messages, scattered across ruined landscapes, is almost too perfect, yet none of them were placed deliberately to comment on the story. They are simply reused assets. What feels like social satire is often the result of efficient game design. Fallout's vending machines contain another tiny piece of humor. In Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, every Nuka-Cola machine has a small price tag reading 1 cap, though bottle caps did not become currency until after the war. This means the machine somehow predicted the economy of the wasteland 2 centuries early. Whether it is an oversight or an intentional joke, it has become one of the series' quiet contradictions. The strange physics of Fallout's world lead to endless small absurdities. A shopping cart can survive a direct missile hit without moving, while a single empty can may roll down an entire street indefinitely. This happens because the game assigns mass values inconsistently between objects. Heavy items are often lighter than feathers, and some small objects carry invisible friction multipliers that prevent them from stopping. The result is a playground of nonsense that no one ever fixes, because it makes the world feel alive in its brokenness. The names of random settlers also carry patterns few people notice. In Fallout 4, every raider leader has a randomly generated name drawn from a list of 200 options, including absurd ones like Toast, Sledge, and Butter. There is even a 1% chance for a raider to spawn named Dog, confusing the dialogue system when dog meat is nearby. This bug can cause the companion to respond as if being addressed directly. Developers later confirmed that they intentionally left the name pool unchanged because they found the situation amusing. The Institute scientists in Fallout 4 occasionally say the line, "Precision is our ally," even when performing completely mundane tasks like sweeping floors. This occurs because the voice line was assigned to the wrong AI behavior tag. What sounds like a slogan of discipline is actually a misplaced line meant for combat robots. The mix-up went unnoticed until release, and by then, it had already become a piece of Fallout charm, the idea that janitors in the future speak like soldiers. A lesser-known detail involves the sound of the vertibirds' rotors. In Fallout 3, they spin slightly slower than they appear to. The animation and sound loop are out of sync by a fraction of a second, creating a hypnotic rhythm that players rarely notice. In Fallout 4, the same sound was reused without correction. The result is that across 2 games and 2 generations of hardware, the aircraft of the wasteland all hum just a little offbeat. The collectible magazines scattered across Fallout games also contain minor text quirks. If zoomed in on closely, the paragraphs often repeat the same sentence or contain gibberish placeholder words. Some covers even include fake prices like 73 cents, chosen simply because it looked right on the art. The amount never changes in later centuries, implying that even inflation could not survive the apocalypse. Fallout's sense of humor sometimes hides in the game code itself. Data miners who explored Fallout 4's files found developer comments embedded in scripts, including notes like, "Do not delete," or "Todd will be angry," and "This door hates light." These small jokes were never meant for players, but reveal the personality of the people behind the world. It is fitting that a game about ruins should contain the graffiti of its own creation. Among the rarest useless facts are the things no one can see without modding. In Fallout 3's Megaton, there exists a single invisible wall far above the city that contains a pixel-sized texture reading "Made in Maryland." This was likely added as a test or a signature by the development team. It cannot be viewed without free camera tools, but fans who found it treat it like a digital relic, a reminder that even invisible details have stories. In Fallout 76, a set of broken dialogue files includes unused responses for Mr. Handy robots when asked about the weather. Instead of predicting rain, they respond with lines such as "processing emotion, subroutine sadness." The lines never made it into the final release, but they remain in the files, quietly existing as echoes of humor from developers who knew their world was equal parts tragic and absurd. For a series defined by decay and destruction, Fallout remains filled with life in the smallest, most pointless details. The world may be bleak, but it refuses to be empty. Every misplaced item, every repeating poster, and every broken animation contributes to the texture of the wasteland, a universe where even the useless matters, because it was made with care. Every Fallout game hides secrets that serve no purpose but to make players smile, puzzle, or wonder what the developers were thinking. The Pip-Boy itself carries many of these forgotten details. In Fallout 4, if a player stares at the Pip-Boy map long enough without moving, the compass needle begins to drift ever so slightly to the left. It is not an error in design, but an intentional offset added by a programmer who wanted to mimic old analog devices. It changes nothing in gameplay, yet adds realism no one ever asked for. The same can be said for the way the Pip-Boy clock ticks at a slightly different rhythm depending on the frame rate. The device tells time imperfectly in a game that already has no true day or night schedule, and somehow that imperfection makes it feel more real. Another invisible detail hides in the food system. When the player eats cooked meat in Fallout 4, a faint sizzling sound plays. That sound is not an eating noise at all, but the playback of a fire crackle slowed down 3 times. The sound team discovered that the human chewing recordings were too repetitive, so they replaced them with a distorted campfire effect. As a result, every meal in the Commonwealth technically sounds like fire, though no one would ever notice without isolating the audio. The random names of terminals also reveal small pieces of humor. In Fallout 3, if the player hacks enough computers, they might eventually find one labeled Todd's Password Test. It functions normally, but appears in an unused office cell with no connection to the story. The name is a quiet nod to the development team's internal jokes. In Fallout 4, similar test objects exist labeled Light Switch of Destiny or Chair of Infinite Comfort. These titles appear only in the game's files, but reflect the personality behind the project. Some locations in Fallout exist solely because someone wanted to fill space. In Fallout New Vegas, there is a small shack between Quarry Junction and the NCR Correctional Facility that contains only a tin can, a bedroll, and a burnt magazine. The shack serves no quest, has no loot, and contains no hidden notes. Its existence is never explained. Fans often revisit it just to marvel at how completely pointless it is. In a series that turns even trash into treasure, a building made of pure nothingness becomes its own kind of beauty. One of the most unusual pieces of Fallout trivia involves the coffee cups scattered throughout the games. In Fallout 4, coffee cups weigh more than empty bottles, even though both are made of similar materials. The reason is simple: the cups were imported from a different project within the same game engine. They inherited their original weight values from a fantasy title the studio had previously made. That oversight carried through every patch. As a result, the wasteland remains ruled by a universe where ceramic mugs are heavier than glass bottles. Fallout skeletons continue to tell silent stories, but some of them tell none at all. There is a skeleton lying beneath a pile of rocks in the glowing sea, with one arm stretched out as if reaching for help. Its position appears meaningful, but the truth is that the rock pile originally covered a weapon that was later removed during development. The skeleton remained because the level artist forgot to delete it. For years, players imagined it was the corpse of a soldier crushed by debris during the war. In reality, it was simply a ghost of missing content. The robots that populate Fallout often behave unpredictably due to small quirks in their programming. Mr. Handy robots, for example, sometimes mutter to themselves when no one is around. The line "must polish more" plays even if their cleaning routines are complete. This happens because the idle dialogue timer does not check for task completion. Similarly, Assaultrons occasionally stop mid-fight to perform an unnecessary calibration animation. This pause was originally meant for NPC demonstrations in pre-war museums, but was left in combat code. It makes them look strangely human, like soldiers distracted by their own thoughts. The Fallout universe also includes many objects that serve as tiny nods to the real world. In Fallout 4's Far Harbor expansion, a small crate near a lighthouse bears the initials RA. These letters belong to one of the sound designers who placed the crate as a personal signature. In Fallout 76, a similar signature appears on a wall reading WJ was here. Developers have hidden their initials in dozens of places, though most remain undiscovered. Each mark is a quiet declaration that behind every ruined wall and burned building stands a living hand. Even Fallout's weather hides useless secrets. In Fallout 76, fog density occasionally spikes to double its normal level, but only during moments when the player looks toward the mountains. The effect happens because of a misaligned weather trigger zone. It has no effect on visibility beyond a few seconds, but creates an eerie glow that looks intentional. Some fans think it represents atomic residue drifting from old blast zones, unaware that it was simply an error of height placement. Fallout's accidents are often its greatest storytellers. The design of the vault suits hides another minor inconsistency. Each vault jumpsuit has a number printed on the back, yet the material's texture shifts color depending on lighting. Under direct sunlight, it turns bright blue, while in shadows, it looks almost purple. This was caused by the texture being based on metallic shading rather than fabric. The effect makes it seem as though the vault suits subtly shimmer, a strange fashion statement for survivors who live underground. Many of Fallout's music tracks also carry their own quirks. The radio station in Fallout 3 occasionally pauses for a fraction of a second between songs, not due to buffering, but because of the randomization algorithm restarting the playlist. It creates the illusion of a radio host switching records. The glitch became so beloved that later games intentionally mimicked it. Similarly, in Fallout 4, the track "It's All Over But the Crying" plays slightly faster than its original version to better fit the game's tempo. The difference is barely perceptible, but gives the music a faint, restless energy that fits the setting. There are small physics jokes scattered across the series as well. The bottle cap mine in Fallout 3 can be placed directly on water, where it floats indefinitely, spinning in place like a toy boat. This occurs because the mine's collision model does not detect liquid surfaces. Players discovered it by accident and began using them as decoration for settlements years later. In Fallout 4, similar quirks allow buckets to hover if dropped near ladders or fences. These oddities have no impact on gameplay, but fill the world with unintentional wonder. The food labels of Fallout are filled with nonsense text. The Blamco boxes sometimes list fictional nutrients like vitamin X or protein substitute 4. The Dandy Boy Apples cans include a message saying certified fruit-like content. These words mean nothing, but they exist in high enough resolution that players can read them. The developers said they added them late in production to fill unused texture space. The world might be falling apart, but its packaging remains proudly confusing. In Fallout New Vegas, the mysterious sunset at the edge of the map hides a faint shimmer where the sky meets the desert. That shimmer is caused by invisible water planes used to reflect lighting. These surfaces extend far beyond the playable area, creating a horizon that no one was ever meant to see. The illusion of infinity was built from simple tricks, each one more pointless than the next, yet together they make the world feel vast. Even Fallout's smallest dialogue choices carry trivia worth mentioning. When speaking to the robot Codsworth in Fallout 4, the game contains a list of over 900 possible player names that the robot can pronounce aloud. However, more than 200 of these names are never used because the detection script misreads certain characters. Names like Louis, Zoe, and Dean exist in the files but never trigger. The result is that Codsworth seems to ignore them, not out of rudeness, but because of code that never understood them. Another curious detail lies in the mannequins scattered across Red Rocket stations. Some are found wearing hard hats, while others wear none at all. The difference seems random, but in truth it is determined by a leftover variable from the construction crew, NPCs, that were removed before release. When the mannequins were placed, they inherited these randomized clothing tags, giving the impression of variety that was never planned. Fallout's realism is often built on mistakes that no one bothers to correct. One of the most entertaining bugs in Fallout 76 allows objects to continue rotating forever when dropped on sloped surfaces. Players have documented spinning teddy bears, rolling lunchboxes, and even upside-down Brahmin skulls that never stop turning. Developers acknowledged the bug, but left it in place because it caused no harm and occasionally made players laugh. It stands as proof that even the most useless motion can become a source of joy in a world built from ruins. Perhaps the most meaningless yet charming fact of all concerns the beds scattered across the wasteland. In Fallout 4, the player can sleep in countless abandoned mattresses, but not a single one ever shows a blanket. The fabric was intentionally omitted to save memory. Yet this design choice led to decades of jokes about survivors who have rediscovered energy weapons, but not bed sheets. Like everything else in Fallout, the smallest imperfection becomes a part of its identity. Fallout's endless catalog of useless facts reveals something important hidden beneath the absurdity. Every glitch, every misplaced object, and every line of nonsense text adds to the feeling that this world has lived a long, messy life. It is a universe built on contradictions, both tragic and humorous, broken and beautiful, precise and careless all at once. The useless becomes essential because it gives the wasteland its soul. Even after decades of stories, expansions, and rewrites, Fallout's world remains one of the richest places for small, useless details. Many of these were never meant to be discovered. They exist because someone, somewhere, working late on a forgotten project, decided to add a little something no one asked for. The result is a wasteland stitched together not only by tragedy and survival, but also by quiet jokes, personal touches, and traces of human curiosity. Take the vault intercoms scattered across Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. When players activate them, they often emit a burst of static and nothing else. But occasionally, one intercom will respond with the faint sound of breathing. It lasts less than a second and then vanishes. This audio quirk is not a ghostly Easter egg, but a reused sound file from an old intercom test sequence. The breathing was the voice actor testing the microphone. Instead of re-recording, the team simply left it in. The accidental breath of a studio worker became a sound that now echoes across empty vaults. In Fallout 76, a single Mr. Handy robot named Gus can be found in a camp workshop. His voice sounds identical to every other model, but when examined closely, his dialogue line list is half the size of the others. This happened because the developer who added him forgot to assign his angry personality profile. Gus, therefore, lacks all aggressive lines, meaning he can only express cheerful approval. The wasteland is full of death and radiation, yet one robot wanders eternally happy because of a missing data link. Some items in Fallout are useless even by the game's own logic. The Abraxo Industrial Cleaner appears in every title, yet its chemical formula is never revealed. A file in Fallout 4's data lists its components as cleans dirt and sadness. It is clearly a joke comment by one of the writers, but because it exists in a resource file, it technically means that the only confirmed ingredient in Abraxo is emotion. The collectible lunchboxes in Fallout 4 have another hidden detail. When opened, they make a small popping sound, followed by confetti flying out. The sound file is shared with the mine explosion sound, but slowed down. Developers confirmed that it was easier to recycle an explosion effect than record a new pop. Every cheerful confetti burst is, in fact, the ghost of a bomb. In Fallout New Vegas, there is a non-functioning radio in the Nipton Hotel that plays no sound when activated. Under normal circumstances, it does nothing. But if a player waits long enough beside it, a faint crackling noise begins to loop. The static was left behind from an early quest that was cut during production. The station was supposed to broadcast a distress call but never did. What remains is the sound of a world that tried to say something and then went silent. Another useless curiosity lies in Fallout's pre-war toys. The rocket ship models and tiny cars found in abandoned houses all carry serial numbers that begin with the digits 888. This was the internal prefix assigned to items that had no gameplay function. Because the art team had to label every object, they gave the number 888 to fun items only. The result is that nearly every toy in Fallout shares the same invisible barcode. The terminals inside the Brotherhood of Steel airships have their own trivia. If you scroll to the bottom of certain log entries, a repeating line of text reads checksum invalid. It appears to be a software error, but it was deliberately added to mimic data corruption. However, due to an early typo, half the entries say checksum invalid. No one caught the mistake before release. A spelling error, meant to represent the decay of civilization, now lives forever inside a floating fortress. Some of Fallout's glitches have become more famous than the games themselves. In Fallout 76, there is a bug where dead enemies occasionally stand up and salute before collapsing again. This occurs because of conflicting death animations between factions that use military models. The salute animation plays automatically when the system detects a soldier class tag, even post-mortem. Players have nicknamed it the Patriotic Farewell. It serves no purpose except to make the wasteland oddly polite. The Fallout series also loves to include absurdly long strings of text hidden on objects no one reads. On the back of every Nuka-Cola machine, a metal label warns users not to insert foreign currency, jewelry, or rodents. It is almost invisible, but it can be seen if you crouch behind the machine with a flashlight. The line was copied from a safety regulation manual written by the game's writers for immersion. Ironically, no player character could ever fit behind the machine without breaking the laws of physics. In Fallout 3, the glowing barrels of radioactive waste scattered across the capital wasteland often display serial numbers. One of these reads Serial 8208. The digits correspond to the release date of the first Fallout game, October 1997. The placement was a small tribute to the beginning of the series. The rest of the barrels carry random numbers, but that single one connects a fictional disaster to a real-world memory. Even Fallout's shadows carry trivia. In Fallout 4, when the player equips power armor, the armor's shadow flickers for a single frame as it loads. The development team decided not to fix this because it made the animation feel more like an old film reel. It was described internally as cinematic imperfection. That phrase has since become a quiet motto for Fallout itself. The in-game clocks found across the wasteland often freeze at random times that do not match the lore. Some stop at 6:30, others at 2:10, and a few at 12 exactly. Each one freezes at the moment its respective cell was saved during development. Every time a designer stopped working for the night, the game world stopped too. The scattered clocks are the fossilized work schedule of an entire studio. The sound of Geiger counters in Fallout is more complex than it appears. The ticking is not random, but built from a layered pattern of beeps, spaced in uneven intervals. The design team used recordings of frying bacon to mimic static. This sound mix was so convincing that players assumed it came from real Geiger counters. The bacon effect returns in every Fallout title. Even the vault door opening sequences include unnecessary details. The massive gear-shaped doors always rotate the same direction, regardless of the vault's layout. Logically, half of them should spin the other way, but a single direction was chosen for animation simplicity. As a result, some vaults technically open inward instead of outward, breaking their own design. Fans have joked for years that these backwards doors would trap everyone inside, but within Fallout's world, consistency is less important than spectacle. Fallout's terminals occasionally include names of employees who never existed. In Fallout 4, one log in the General Atomics factory lists a Janet M. No Person. The name was a placeholder meant to fill an empty slot. It survived every round of editing and became a permanent ghost employee of the pre-war world. The smallest items often hold the strangest details. In Fallout 3, there is a set of garden gnome statues found throughout the wasteland. Some wear sunglasses, others hold beer bottles. If all the gnomes in a specific area are destroyed, nothing happens, but the game briefly loads a hidden achievement icon called Gnome Regret. It never displays on screen and cannot be unlocked. The file still exists as a hidden joke buried deep within the code. The terminals used by Enclave soldiers sometimes contain random personal notes. One message reads, "If you are reading this, the coffee is gone." Another says, "Someone please feed the iBots." These lines serve no quest purpose. They were added to make the world feel occupied. Every meaningless note adds warmth to an otherwise cold faction. A peculiar lighting effect in Fallout 4 causes Nuka-Cola quantum bottles to cast a shadow brighter than the surrounding area. The glow texture inverts when overlapping certain objects, creating a strange halo that behaves like negative light. Developers said they left it because it looked science fiction enough. That small accident has since been adopted by players as proof of the beverage's mysterious energy. Across all Fallout games, the crash test dummy model used for physics testing appears at least once, hidden somewhere in the map. In Fallout New Vegas, it floats beneath Hoover Dam. In Fallout 4, it rests half buried near a pre-war test site. In Fallout 76, it lies under a bridge with no collision. The developers quietly placed it in every title as a personal signature. The dummy has become a secret mascot for the team, a silent observer who sees the end of the world in every timeline. All these fragments, the intercom breath, the cheerful robot, the frozen clocks, and the bacon Geiger counter form a pattern of accidents and affection. Fallout's useless facts are more than trivia. They are proof of the human touch that keeps the wasteland alive. The world might be rusted and broken, but it was built by people who laughed, who hid jokes in corners, who misspelled words, and who breathed into their microphones before deleting the test file. In a series about what remains after everything is lost, those tiny imperfections are what make it feel human. For all the grandeur of its history and the seriousness of its setting, Fallout has always been defined by the smallest, strangest details. These bits of trivia serve no grand narrative purpose. They exist to remind players that even a dead world can still hum with quiet life. Nowhere is this clearer than in the random mistakes and overlooked pieces that give the wasteland its texture. In Fallout 4, for instance, there is a radio antenna on top of a ruined hospital that continuously plays static even when powered off. It is not tied to any quest or secret. The audio loop was accidentally placed on the wrong trigger, causing it to play forever. Fans have called it the voice of the wasteland and treat it like a hidden message from before the war. In truth, it is only a misplaced sound file echoing endlessly through a digital sky. A similar ghost exists in Fallout 76, where one of the game's ambient wind sounds contains a faint whisper-like tone. For years, players believed they could hear words in the gusts, imagining voices of lost vault dwellers calling through the breeze. The effect was actually caused by a compression artifact in the audio track. The accidental whisper became an unintentional legend, proving once again that Fallout's world grows through misunderstanding. The mannequins in Fallout 4's abandoned stores are programmed with collision boxes larger than their bodies. This means the player's bullets occasionally bounce off invisible outlines before making contact. Developers said the decision was unintentional, but left it to avoid performance issues. The result is that the mannequins sometimes seem supernaturally durable, as if the apocalypse granted them invisible armor. One of the smallest and most overlooked items in Fallout history is the tin can. In Fallout 3, the game contains exactly 6 different can textures, but 2 of them are duplicated under new names. This duplication causes a random chance that 2 identical cans will be treated as separate objects when scrapped. It serves no function beyond confusing players who collect junk for crafting. The difference is invisible to the eye, but it exists because someone in the art department decided each can deserve its own name. Even the sky of Fallout hides small mysteries. In Fallout New Vegas, a pattern of stars forms a constellation resembling a smiling face above the Mojave after midnight. The arrangement was not intentional. It occurred when texture seams overlapped during rendering. Fans discovered it years later, screenshotting the cosmic grin as proof that even the heavens of Fallout find humor in ruin. The terminals in Fallout 4 sometimes list fictional companies with impossible names. One file mentions a firm called Ironically Stainless Steel. Another references the Unbreakable Glass Corporation. These names exist only in background flavor text, never mentioned aloud, never expanded upon. They are remnants of world-building drafts that no one deleted. Fallout's past is full of abandoned creativity, thousands of tiny fragments scattered like bottle caps across digital dust. Fallout 76 includes a peculiar phenomenon known as the Immortal Ragdoll. When certain NPCs die during specific weather conditions, their corpses remain standing with arms slightly outstretched. The physics simulation locks them in place, creating a haunting image of figures frozen in surrender. The bug appears randomly and vanishes when the area reloads, yet for a few quiet minutes, it feels like the wasteland holds its breath. Even the smallest design decisions have stories. The Brahmin, the 2-headed cattle that populate Fallout's farmlands, were originally created as a joke. Early concept art from the first game described them as mutant cows that stare in 2 directions for maximum confusion. The design team loved the idea and kept it. To this day, Brahmin eyes never focus on the same target. They are living symbols of Fallout's odd humor creatures born of radiation and laughter in equal measure. The music of Fallout is full of imperfections that fans have learned to love. Some tracks loop unevenly, ending mid-verse before starting over again. Others fade out too soon, cutting before the final note. The radio in Fallout 4 occasionally plays the same song twice in a row due to an indexing bug. These errors were left intentionally because they gave the music a sense of wear, as if the records themselves were scratched relics from a forgotten era. The pre-war signs scattered throughout Fallout often contain typographical errors. Words like restaurant or authorized are sometimes misspelled, not for humor, but because different artists made different textures without cross-checking. Instead of fixing them, the team decided that the mistakes made sense in a world where attention to detail had vanished. In Fallout, even spelling collapses under the weight of the apocalypse. Every vault across the series contains at least one item that does not belong there. In Vault 81, a single bag of dog food sits inside a medical fridge. In Vault 104, a pre-war money stack rests on a toilet seat. In Fallout 3's Vault 101, a single fork spawns behind an unreachable glass wall. These misplaced props exist because level designers copied object templates between maps. Their presence has inspired endless speculation about secret messages. The truth is much simpler. Even perfectionists make mistakes, and sometimes mistakes make the best stories. Fallout's obsession with randomness extends even to the tiniest motion. The dust particles floating through sunlight in Fallout 4 move in repeating loops of exactly 12 seconds. They restart so seamlessly that no one notices. That loop length was chosen because it matched the studio's internal test video of falling snow used years earlier on another project. A winter scene accidentally shaped the atmosphere of a radioactive summer. Another fascinating footnote in Fallout history involves the Protectron robots. In the files of Fallout 3, one unused line of code allows them to equip hats. The developers originally planned to let players decorate them with pre-war headwear as a joke, but the feature was cut before release. The line of code remains, meaning that technically, the game still supports robot fashion. It just lacks the menu to activate it. Some locations exist purely to fill silence. In Fallout New Vegas, the Black Mountain radio tower hums quietly even when turned off. The hum continues for as long as the player remains in range. The sound comes from an unused generator hidden under the map. It is completely invisible, its only job to add faint ambience to the mountain's wind. Like many things in Fallout, its purpose was forgotten, but its presence endured. Even the most basic mechanics of Fallout hide useless complexity. In Fallout 4, the player's footsteps change slightly in pitch, depending on their health level. Below 50% health, the footsteps sound heavier and slower, as if exhaustion sets in. This feature is subtle enough that few notice it. Yet it represents hours of work by sound designers who wanted to make damage feel physical. It is a layer of care invisible to almost everyone. The fusion cores that power armor have one more quirk. If a player drops a depleted core on the ground, it can still cast light in complete darkness. The developers forgot to disable its glow after discharge. The result is a dead battery that shines brighter than the living. Players often place them around settlements as makeshift lanterns. In Fallout, even emptiness can illuminate. The game's creatures carry similar traces of humor. In Fallout 4, the Yao Guai bears occasionally perform an idle animation that makes them look like they are clapping. It is actually a grooming motion reused from dog behavior files. Because of this, The savage mutant bears sometimes sit in the forest, rhythmically applauding the apocalypse. No one corrected it, because everyone loved the image too much. Fallout's charm lies in these contradictions. It is a world obsessed with death, yet overflowing with tiny signs of life robots who hum broken songs, mannequins that cannot be shot properly, and mutant cows that always look in opposite directions. Every bug, typo, and misplaced object becomes a story told by accident. The wasteland is not perfect, but it is personal. It feels touched by real people who understood that beauty often hides in mistakes. Across the decades of Fallout's history, the series has accumulated a mountain of hidden quirks, design leftovers, and half-finished jokes that never needed to exist, but somehow make the world unforgettable. Even in a landscape built from ruin, useless things continue to find ways to survive. One of the strangest of these useless survivors is the humble plunger. In Fallout 3, plungers can be found in nearly every bathroom. They weigh as much as a small rifle and can be picked up, stored, and thrown, yet they have no crafting value and no special use. Their presence is so consistent that some players have created collections of hundreds just to see how many the game engine can handle. When stacked together, they form towers taller than buildings, bending under their own physics. They serve no quest, no purpose, and yet they are always there, a quiet symbol of the absurd devotion to detail that defines Fallout. The fire extinguishers of Fallout 4 tell a similar story. These bright red cylinders can explode when shot, releasing a puff of white dust. That dust is not smoke or gas, but a retextured snow particle from the Skyrim engine used years earlier. The developers reused it as a placeholder and never replaced it. Every time a fire extinguisher bursts in the Commonwealth, it snows for a fraction of a second. The small paintings that hang in Fallout's houses hold trivia too. Many of them depict cheerful pre-war families smiling at picnic tables or lakes, but one of the most common frames hides a secret. Zoom close enough, and the father in the image is holding a Nuka-Cola bottle instead of a glass. This tiny detail appears in at least 10 copies across the series, unnoticed by most players. The artist who designed the texture confirmed in an interview that he did it because everyone in Fallout would probably drink Nuka-Cola, even in paradise. In Fallout New Vegas, the inside of every fridge contains the same texture, even when viewed in pitch darkness. The refrigerators actually glow slightly, an artifact from how light reflections were handled in that engine. It gives the impression that the fridges are radioactive or haunted, but in reality, they are simply self-illuminating props. The glowing fridge is one of the many accidents that fans later accepted as part of Fallout's aesthetic. Some facts involve the smallest creatures in the wasteland. The bloatflies found across all regions share a hidden behavior code that makes them turn toward music sources. The feature was meant for decorative butterflies in a cut pre-war park area, but remained in the insect AI. That is why bloatflies sometimes buzz toward radios or jukeboxes. The same code later caused radroaches in Fallout 4 to gather near gramophones. A simple leftover script gave the apocalypse its strangest dance party. The terminals inside Robco facilities often contain entries labeled as maintenance logs, but a few have entries that repeat a single word endlessly. In one case, the word bzzzt is typed over and over across several lines. This is not corruption or humor. It was meant to simulate an electrical surge, but accidentally saved as permanent text. The employees of the Wasteland's most advanced tech company left behind a computer filled with nonsense. Even Fallout's loading screens contain small inconsistencies. In Fallout 3, one tip tells players that drinking purified water removes radiation, which is true, but another tip, 2 screens later, says that all water contains trace radiation, contradicting the first. These screens were written by different members of the team who never compared notes. A simple lack of coordination became a philosophical paradox about hydration. Some of the random encounters that appear as players wander the wasteland exist only because someone thought they sounded funny. The two travelers who argue about the existence of aliens in Fallout 3 can appear anywhere, even inside radiation zones. Their debate never changes, and they disappear after a few seconds. The encounter was originally meant to occur only near the crashed UFO site, but when the spawn coordinates were duplicated, the event could trigger anywhere. Two people forever debating space creatures now wander a ruined world without context or reason. A few Fallout facts are strange even to the people who made the games. In Fallout 4, a handful of raider camps include sandbag barricades that float slightly above the ground. The floating is caused by a zero-gravity test cell used during early development. These bags were copied from the test area, and the gravity flag was never reset. The result is that dozens of raiders unknowingly defend bases built on hovering sand. Even Fallout's skyboxes carry their own small errors. During certain weather transitions, clouds briefly flash with faint grid patterns, a visual leftover from the lighting algorithm that divides the sky into segments. The pattern lasts less than a second and resembles ancient circuitry. It has no lore meaning, but it gives the impression that the heavens themselves are part of the machinery that keeps Fallout's world running. Some facts are buried so deep that they cannot be seen without breaking the rules. In Fallout New Vegas, a giant invisible cube sits above the strip, labeled Reflection Box Main. Its only job is to make shiny objects sparkle correctly. The developers forgot to delete its collision box, so technically, it exists as a solid invisible wall in the sky. A few players who modded the game discovered it and called it the Invisible God. To this day, that cubic reflection still hovers silently above the neon ruins of the Mojave. The food and drink system of Fallout also hides some useless complexity. The water in Nuka-Cola Quantum glows blue because of a chemical meant to represent a fictional isotope, but its light level is fixed regardless of time or weather. Even at noon, bottles shine as bright as during night. The effect makes no scientific sense, but it was left unchanged because it looked better in screenshots. Fallout has always cared more about atmosphere than accuracy. One of the most ridiculous items in Fallout's long history is the toaster. It appears as junk in almost every title, yet in Fallout 76, a particular toaster model contains a unique description reading, "I used to be useful." The line was written by a designer during an internal test. When questioned later, he said it was his favorite prop in the entire game. That small dose of melancholy sums up Fallout perfectly, a universe where even the toasters have regrets. The Pip-Boy's radiation meter hides its own joke. When the Geiger counter needle reaches maximum levels, it flicks to the side twice before returning to 0. This is not an animation loop error, but a hidden safety behavior copied from the design of real Cold War Geiger counters, which would occasionally reset themselves when overwhelmed. The developers added the feature simply because they thought it looked cool. Some of the most useless Fallout facts exist outside the games themselves. The instruction manual for Fallout 2 included a recipe for post-apocalyptic stew made from real ingredients. The recipe was written as a joke, but several fans have actually cooked it. Reviews were mixed, but it remains the only official Fallout meal in existence. Even the achievements of Fallout hide hidden humor. In Fallout 4, the achievement called Masshole unlocks after completing one of the game's earliest missions. The term refers to residents of Massachusetts, but the description simply reads, "Congratulations." It has no further context, no joke, no moral. It exists only because the design team wanted to make someone laugh when the notification appeared. There are even hidden Easter eggs in Fallout's radio static. If slowed down 100 times, the static between tracks occasionally forms short patterns of sound that resemble Morse code. These are not messages or secrets, but artifacts of the compression algorithm repeating certain frequencies. Players who spend hours decoding them find only gibberish, but that gibberish has become part of the myth of Fallout's mystery. The terminal files of Fallout 4 list fictional software version numbers for the Pip-Boy. They progress in order until the last entry, which suddenly jumps backward from 100 to 12. This backward numbering was intentional, representing the developer's own internal revision notes. The implication is that the Pip-Boy's software somehow de-evolved after the war, perfectly fitting the theme of civilization's decline. Fallout's chairs also follow a pattern of quiet absurdity. Sitting animations are the same for every model, meaning that no matter the shape of the seat, the character always sits at the same height. This causes characters to float above low stools or sink through high couches. The result is that comfort in Fallout is an illusion. A lesser-known object found in Fallout 76 is the clipboard. When examined closely, its paper texture contains random scribbles that are actually names of sound engineers written in cursive. They sign the file as a form of credit. No one would ever see it during normal play, but every clipboard in Appalachia carries their marks like secret autographs hidden beneath years of dust. Across every entry in the Fallout series, one theme persists that the smallest details matter most. A misspelled warning label, an invisible cube, a toaster's lament. Each fragment reminds players that behind the wasteland's ruins are artists and designers who filled their world not only with decay, but with humor and heart. The apocalypse might erase history, but it cannot erase personality. Every misplaced sign and accidental glow becomes another whisper of life in a place built from death. As the years passed and new Fallout games reshaped the series, one thing never changed: the quiet presence of useless details. These are the invisible fingerprints of every artist, coder, and designer who ever worked on the wasteland, the fragments that no one was meant to notice. Yet those are often the ones that make the world feel alive. Among the strangest of these is found in Fallout 4's subway tunnels. Hidden deep in one of the collapsed stations lies a pile of teddy bears arranged in what looks like a small tea party. Two bears sit upright on opposite sides of a board, while a third has fallen over beside a toy soldier. No quest points you toward it. No dialogue mentions it. It simply exists, a moment of softness in a world of ruin. Developers later confirmed that multiple artists hid bear scenes like this as a competition to see who could create the funniest tableau. Dozens of secret bear dioramas now rest quietly beneath the Commonwealth, serving no purpose but to make people smile. The teddy bears have their own lore too. When scavenged, they weigh exactly half as much as a bottle of purified water, even though their models are nearly the same size. This oddity comes from a data entry mistake during the early balancing phase. One developer reportedly joked that the bears were made of light optimism. That line eventually made its way into an unused loading screen tip. Another tiny but enduring quirk lies in Fallout New Vegas's casinos. When the player wins large sums of caps, the dealers still congratulate them with identical voice lines, no matter how ridiculous the amount. You could win hundreds of thousands of caps, yet the dealer still says, "Congratulations, sir," in the same calm tone. The developers reused a single line to save memory space, but the result created a surreal sense of indifference, as though the Mojave's casinos have long since stopped caring about fortune or ruin. Fallout 76 adds its own layer of trivia to the tradition of absurdity. In certain forest regions, players can occasionally hear the faint cry of an owl at night. However, the game files contain no owl sound effect. The noise actually comes from a stretched out version of a crow call used in earlier builds. The distorted pitch accidentally created the illusion of an owl. This ghost bird has since become an unintentional wildlife species unique to Fallout's Appalachia. Not all useless Fallout facts are accidents. Some are deliberate acts of mischief by developers who wanted to hide their initials in the game. In Fallout 4's Glowing Sea, an underwater rock formation contains the faint letters JA carved into its texture. A level artist admitted years later that it stood for his initials. Players spent months speculating it was the start of a hidden message or quest. In the end, it was simply one person signing their art in the only place no one would ever look. The vending machines that dispense Nuka-Cola across the wasteland contain their own curiosities. If you look behind the machine with a free camera, the interior is entirely hollow, except for a single floating bottle cap that hovers in midair. It serves no purpose other than to keep the machine's physics stable. Without it, the model vibrates when loaded into a new area. The lone cap acts like a digital anchor, preventing chaos one penny at a time. A beloved detail across multiple games is the sleeping raider phenomenon. In Fallout 3, certain raiders can be found asleep in random beds, often snoring through firefights or alarms. This is because their AI lacks a proper wake-up trigger. The sound of explosions, gunfire, and shouting means nothing to them. They remain perfectly still, dreaming through combat. Players began calling them peaceful raiders, imagining that these few souls had found true serenity amid the chaos. Even Fallout's animals hold surprises. The mole rats of Fallout 4 emit low growls that, when reversed, form faint human syllables. The audio designer accidentally recorded himself grumbling during the mixing process and used the clip backward for the sound effect. The result is that every mole rat carries the hidden echo of a human voice trapped within its snarl. The graffiti across the Fallout series hides countless inside jokes. On one wall in Diamond City, faint letters read, "Drink water, idiot." This line originated as a reminder for a developer who kept forgetting to hydrate during long shifts. It was placed as a private joke, but it survived to the final game. Now the world itself reminds players to drink water, a meta message of care hidden inside concrete. Even the bottle caps themselves tell a story. In Fallout 3, the caps display the Nuka-Cola logo, but some have small dents in the same pattern. When zoomed in, these dents form a crude smiley face. The reason was purely mechanical. The texture artist used an uneven brush and accidentally repeated it across the template. That tiny smiling mark now appears on millions of caps across the wasteland, a permanent reminder that imperfection gives Fallout its charm. Fallout New Vegas hides something stranger still. In the vaults, specifically Vault 11, the walls contain vents shaped slightly differently from every other vault. The difference was unintentional. The The 3D model imported from another project used metric measurements instead of imperial ones, shrinking the vent frames by a fraction. To players, it looks identical, but within the game files, Vault 11's air system is technically built for another world. Some useless Fallout details are more poetic than funny. In Fallout 4's Far Harbor expansion, during the dense fog that rolls over the island, the game's lighting engine randomly amplifies certain reflections, making them shimmer briefly. One of these reflections occurs on the water surface when no visible light source is near. The developers called this bug ghost sunlight. It happens because the fog layer reflects ambient radiation lighting. Players have mistaken it for signs from the children of Adam, turning a bug into a legend. The mysterious mannequins of Fallout deserve another mention. They appear in countless homes and bunkers, often posed in eerie ways, sitting at desks, aiming invisible weapons, or simply staring. Developers revealed that each mannequin's pose was randomized through an internal test feature meant to verify physics stability. When the game shipped, the test feature was accidentally left on. That is why mannequins appear in different positions each time a cell loads. They are ghosts, not of people, but of code. Even in the oldest Fallout titles, random trivia blooms like weeds. Fallout 2 contains a unique item called the Rubber Boots of Inconvenience. They were meant to protect against radiation puddles, but accidentally made the player slower instead. The developers left them as a joke, describing them in the manual as boots for people who enjoy the scenic route. Their uselessness became part of their legacy. Fallout's radio stations sometimes contain misaligned audio clips that overlap for a fraction of a second when changing songs. The reason dates back to Fallout 3's use of a single continuous playlist that was never meant to be interrupted. When developers added more music later, they sliced files into smaller segments. The transition overlaps by exactly half a second, creating an effect where two songs briefly merge. It feels like a DJ from before the war, still learning how to use a record player. In Fallout 76, the player can find skeletons in strange positions, one sitting in a bathtub with a bottle of wine, another lying next to a teddy bear, and one face down in a refrigerator. Most of these skeletons were arranged intentionally to tell stories, but a few are pure accidents. When the ragdoll physics loaded incorrectly, skeletons twisted or fell in strange ways, and the developers simply left them as they were. That is why some appear almost comedic, their final moments shaped by gravity, not tragedy. The bus stop benches scattered throughout Fallout 4's Boston region all bear the same faded slogan, "Ride with Pride." It came directly from a Massachusetts bus advertisement that the art team used as reference material. The words stayed because no one bothered to change them. Now, a real-world slogan echoes endlessly through the wasteland as part of a fictional apocalypse. Even the texture of the dirt beneath the player's feet holds secrets. In Fallout 4, the ground texture contains small fragments of words embedded in it, old copyright stamps and paintbrush marks from the texture files. Zoomed close enough, you can see faint letters like Beth and US Tex. These were never meant to be visible, yet they remain etched into the very soil of Fallout, reminders that behind the digital world lies the hand of the artist. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about all these small fragments is how none of them were designed to matter. They do not affect the ending, the quests, or the player's choices. They simply exist, waiting for someone curious enough to look too closely. Fallout's greatest secret might be that its useless details are what make it believable. In a world built on ruins, Every imperfection becomes proof that someone once cared enough to make it imperfect in the first place. The world of Fallout is full of forgotten corners, hidden quirks, and leftover code that tells stories no one was ever meant to hear. Each small piece, from a crooked sign to a misplaced sound effect, helps make the wasteland feel alive in its own broken way. These are the fragments that lie beneath the surface, the quiet details that exist simply because someone cared enough to leave them behind. One of these subtle details hides in Fallout 4's Red Rocket truck stops. Every Red Rocket logo contains a faint layer of grime, but if you brighten the image, you can see a thin ring around the base of the rocket. This ring was meant to represent oil staining the metal from decades of service. The effect is invisible to players under normal lighting, yet the artist included it anyway. Every rocket in the wasteland, even after 200 years, still carries the faint trace of its own upkeep. In Fallout 3, there is a rusted sign that reads, "Vault-Tec Cares." The slogan appears outside certain destroyed shelters. It looks cheerful, but slightly crooked, as if it was placed in haste. What most players do not realize is that the sign's alignment actually changes slightly depending on the game's frame rate. The angle shifts by a fraction of a degree when physics loads differently. The result is that Vault-Tec's promise of care literally bends under the strain of technology. A small but poetic quirk exists in Fallout New Vegas. Near the edge of the map, a lone mailbox stands in the middle of the desert, long away from any road. Inside it is a single piece of pre-war junk mail that reads "Final Notice." It serves no quest purpose and gives no rewards. It simply sits there as a symbol of everything the world forgot to deliver. Fallout 76 adds another layer to this tradition with its forgotten chemistry stations. Some of these stations spawn with empty shelves, but if you crouch and look beneath them, a single bottle of Abraxo cleaner rests on the floor. This bottle cannot be picked up. It is not part of the world model, but a static decoration that slipped under the table by accident. For players who notice it, it becomes an odd symbol of Fallout itself, a world half cleaned, but never finished. The terminals of Fallout contain their own form of hidden humor. One early log file in Fallout 4's Cambridge Polymer Labs includes the line, "Please remember to clock out before eternal sleep." The line was intended as a dark joke about overworked employees, but was flagged as too grim for the Polymer Labs and Polymer Labs. Game's rating. The editor forgot to remove it, and it slipped into the final build. Today, thousands of players read it without ever realizing it was once considered inappropriate. In Fallout 2, one of the background textures for a wall features faint handwriting that spells the word "help" backward. It was never meant to be readable. The texture was taken from an old photo of graffiti and mirrored for design reasons. When the image was flipped, the word became reversed, turning a cry for help into an unreadable whisper from the past. The skyboxes of Fallout 4 contain one of the most subtle Easter eggs in the entire series. During a blood moon, the stars rearrange slightly into a pattern that matches the shape of the Vault-Tec logo. The effect lasts for only a few minutes before shifting back. Most players never notice it because it requires perfect timing and weather. It was added late in development by a lighting artist who wanted the vaults to watch over the world. Some Fallout trivia exists only in the game code. In Fallout 3's files, one item is labeled "Eggplant Missile." It never appears in the final game, but its statistics describe it as an explosive vegetable that leaves a faint scent of regret. No one knows who added it. It has no model, no texture, and no purpose, yet it has lived in Fallout's data for more than 15 years as an orphaned joke. The mannequins that populate Fallout 4's world are among the most unsettling features of the series, and their code hides a simple but eerie secret. They are classified as humanoid neutral rather than object. This means they technically count as living beings to the engine. When the player targets them, the game checks for health values, even though they have none. This small mistake explains why certain mannequins can trigger blood effects when hit. Fallout's world treats them as almost human fragments of life in a dead world. Fallout's pre-war magazines include their own quirks. The Grognak the Barbarian comics sometimes display slightly different cover titles than their item names suggest. For example, one issue called In the Lair of the Virgin Eater appears in-game simply as Grognak. The reason is that the file path for the long title broke during localization. To fix it, developers replaced it with a generic name. In Fallout's world, censorship is as random as the radiation storms that sweep across it. Some of Fallout's smallest objects carry enormous amounts of work. The coffee mugs found across the series use a shared model that includes a hidden message carved into the underside. If you manage to flip one perfectly, you can see the words "World's Greatest Programmer" written in tiny letters. It was a personal signature left by one of the developers. Players discovered it years later, confirming that even a coffee cup can hold a story. Fallout 4's pre-war posters include fine print that changes between districts. In downtown Boston, the Nuka-Cola posters include an address for the factory, while in rural areas, the same poster lists a different one. The addresses lead nowhere in-game, but both are real coordinates in Massachusetts. Each points to the general region of where the fictional factory would stand. The tiny print connects Fallout's fiction back to real Earth in a way few ever notice. The musical cues of Fallout contain several pieces of hidden history. The Wanderer track, used in Fallout 4's trailers, includes a faint harmonic tone layered beneath the main melody. This sound was not part of the original song, but a leftover resonance from the studio microphone. Rather than edit it out, the team left it in because it added warmth. That small imperfection became a perfect symbol for Fallout's themes, a little static inside every dream. In Fallout New Vegas, certain signs on the strip include subtle changes depending on time of day. At sunset, one particular sign flickers once before turning on. This single flicker was added manually to simulate aging electrical systems. It uses an extra line of code that only applies to that one sign. Every other light in the strip operates automatically, but that lone sign still needs a gentle nudge to remember how to shine. The vending machines in Fallout 76 occasionally produce a glitch where they dispense two of the same item in rapid succession. This duplication effect happens when two players interact at the same moment. It was never fixed because it caused no harm and occasionally delighted players. Bethesda even referred to it internally as the generosity bug. Fallout's water reflections hide one more secret. When standing near a lake in Fallout 4 at dawn, a faint shimmer sometimes moves across the surface in a perfect circle. This is not wind or ripples. It is a bug caused by the reflection of invisible lighting spheres. The effect was left because it resembled gentle morning waves. A technical flaw became a natural beauty. The fusion generators scattered across Fallout's world each emit a faint hum, but the sound's frequency varies from one region to another. The pitch difference is too small for most players to hear, yet the sound team intentionally tuned them to match the geography of each area. In mountain regions, they hum lower. Near the coast, they hum higher. It is a detail that serves no gameplay function, yet it creates invisible harmony across the wasteland. Even Fallout's bugs tell stories. The flying vertebrae glitch from Fallout 3, where corpses launch into the sky, was caused by a single misplaced bone weight in the ragdoll skeleton. Fixing it would have required redoing hundreds of models, so the developers left it. Over time, it became one of Fallout's most beloved oddities, proof that chaos can sometimes be charming. Fallout is filled with ghosts like these pieces of data, forgotten models, and errors turned to beauty. Together, they create a world that feels strangely alive, as if every texture and sound remembers something from before the war. None of these facts change the story, yet they shape how players feel when they wander the ruins. It is in the useless that Fallout becomes human.